If you think you know how tonight ends, think again. I whispered to myself as I adjusted my tie in front of the mirror, the reflection staring back at me calm, but my heart hammering like a drum in my chest. The city lights outside the apartment window painted streaks across the hardwood floor, flickering over the empty glass on the counter where Sophia had left her last coffee cup hours ago, a subtle trace of her absence. I could hear the faint hum of traffic, the distant sirens, nothing alarming, yet every sound felt amplified, a drum roll leading up to a moment I couldn't yet see. I checked my watch. 8:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the party at the downtown gallery, a party she had insisted I attend, a party she had promised would be just us, a quiet evening among friends. I thought I understood her schedule, the way she moved through her days with effortless grace, but tonight felt different, off in a way I couldn't articulate. My phone buzzed, a message from Sophia, running late. Be ready. See you soon. The words looked innocent, routine, but my gut twisted, a faint whisper of unease curling around my chest. I poured myself a glass of water, the ice clinking softly against the glass, and took a slow breath. I thought about the weeks leading up to this, the subtle shifts in conversation, the jokes that didn't land, the smiles that lingered too long when she spoke with Ryan, that new client she mentioned so casually in the office. Nothing concrete, nothing that would justify suspicion, yet my mind traced patterns, small threads that could unravel a tapestry if pulled. I slipped my phone into my pocket and stepped toward the door, my shoes clicking softly against the hardwood. The elevator ride down felt interminable, each floor a countdown, each ding of arrival a heartbeat echoing in the hollow of my chest. Outside, the air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain and the city's energy, a reminder of life moving fast, indifferent to the private storms we carry inside. I walked across the lobby, my hand brushing against the polished railing, and caught a glimpse of the street beyond the glass doors, the valet moving cars, the party lights glinting against the reflective surfaces of black SUVs and luxury sedans, guests arriving in clusters, laughing, unaware of the tension I carried silently in my chest. And then I saw her, Sophia, radiant in a cobalt dress that caught every reflection, her laughter spilling into the street as she spoke with Ryan Black, a man whose presence seemed to command attention effortlessly. They looked at each other with an ease I had only ever imagined in the moments before a crisis, and for the first time, the room felt like it was spinning around me, every step forward a battle against disbelief. The party, the noise, the lights, they all blurred, and I realized in that suspended moment that the evening I had envisioned, the night I thought I understood, was no longer mine to script. Yet I didn't falter. My fingers flexed around the strap of my watch, the subtle reminder of control I still possessed, a tether to reality. I straightened my shoulders, inhaled deeply, and moved toward them, each step measured, controlled, a rhythm of calm masking the storm beneath, a calm that held secrets, that carried power yet unseen, a calm that would decide how this night, and the story within it, would unfold. The crowd had begun to trickle into the gallery, the soft chatter mixing with the ambient music and clinking glasses, a backdrop of normalcy that contrasted sharply with the tension I carried silently in my chest. I moved through the entrance with deliberate steps, the polished marble floor reflecting the subtle gleam of the overhead chandeliers, each reflection a reminder that appearances were everything here, yet the truth waited beneath the surface. Sophia and Ryan were near the corner, speaking with a small group of colleagues, their body language casual, confident, laughter spilling easily into the room, the kind of laughter that could charm anyone nearby, but now felt like a challenge to me, a statement that they believed the world already tilted in their favor. I could feel every eye in that small cluster turning ever so slightly as I approached, though no one spoke. The tension hummed quietly beneath the social noise, a current only I seemed attuned to. I slowed my pace, letting the rhythm of the party guide my approach, each heartbeat a metronome, keeping my composure intact while the storm within me remained unseen. The subtle scent of champagne mingled with the faint perfume lingering around Sophia, and I allowed my gaze to pass over Ryan with a measured calm, noting his posture, the way he held himself, confident, unaware of the leverage he did not know I possessed. I reached the edge of the group, a quiet acknowledgement to their presence, and let my expression remain neutral, an unreadable mask honed over weeks of planning, moments of quiet observation, and a careful assessment of timing. As Sophia turned to respond to a question from one of her colleagues, her smile flawless, I could see the brief flicker of recognition in her eyes, the instant pause that betrayed a fraction of awareness, and I held it, letting it linger, an invisible weight pressing gently on the unfolding moment. The air seemed to shift, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet charged with a tension that had nothing to do with the music or the lights, but with the understanding that I had anticipated every move, every glance, every misstep that would lead to the reveal, that the evening would not conclude with the illusions they had cultivated so carefully. I let my hand slide along the edge of the polished wooden table near the group, a casual touch that anchored me, and with deliberate calm, I extracted the folder I had carried, light but substantial, filled with documents that would clarify everything, a tangible embodiment of patience, foresight, and the quiet authority I had maintained while they celebrated in ignorance. The group continued to converse, laughter rising and falling like a gentle wave, and I allowed the moment to expand, the anticipation building in silence, a crescendo not of sound but of potential, the kind that only those who wait with purpose can command. I positioned myself just out of immediate view, yet close enough to be seen, and with a calm breath, I prepared to step forward, each movement measured, controlled, the calm surface masking the calculated impact about to be delivered, knowing that the weight of evidence and the precision of timing would transform this evening from a social gathering into a defining moment, one that would redirect attention, alter perception, and deliver clarity in a manner both undeniable and unavoidable. The moment felt suspended in time, the ambient noise of the gallery fading into a muted background as I stepped closer, each footfall deliberate, my gaze steady on the unfolding scene. Sophia and Ryan remained engrossed in conversation, unaware of the folder now resting in my hand, the weight of it grounding me while the crowd carried on around us. I let my eyes scan the faces in the small cluster, noting the subtle glances, the polite smiles that masked curiosity, the way everyone believed they understood the dynamics of the evening, completely oblivious to the quiet power that was about to emerge. The soft clinking of glasses, the laughter from another corner, all of it contrasted sharply with the calm I maintained, a controlled presence that allowed me to observe, assess, and prepare without betraying a hint of anticipation. With measured steps, I positioned myself beside the table, close enough that a casual glance would reveal my presence, yet distant enough to preserve the element of surprise. Sophia turned her attention toward me for just a split second, her expression unguarded, a flicker of recognition that I allowed to linger, a subtle reminder that I had noticed every nuance, every detail, every small act that had led to this precise moment. I exhaled slowly, letting the air fill my lungs, steadying the rhythm of my heartbeat, the calm exterior a mask for the calculated intensity beneath. The documents within the folder contained everything: contracts, correspondences, records, proof of my ownership and authority that had been hidden until now, tangible evidence that would shift the balance without a single raised voice, without a gesture out of place. As I opened the folder, the soft rustle of paper became a signal, a quiet cue to the audience and the participants that the narrative they thought they controlled was about to pivot. I laid a few pages on the table, allowing the corner to catch the light, the ink reflecting subtly, drawing attention without any overt action. Eyes turned slowly, curiosity peaked, the murmur of conversations dipping as attention focused on the documents, and I maintained my posture, calm, composed, a silent force. Sophia's eyes widened fractionally, Ryan's confident smirk faltering ever so slightly, the initial cracks in their perception barely noticeable yet palpable. I allowed the moment to stretch, letting suspense build naturally, the crowd sensing the shift even before understanding it fully, and then I made the slightest gesture toward the folder, a controlled indication, inviting examination. Colleagues leaned forward, glances exchanged, questions forming silently as the proof lay before them, unambiguous, undeniable, each page a step in the narrative unfolding exactly as I had anticipated. I held my expression neutral, not a word spoken, letting the documents speak for themselves, each line, each signature, each notation carrying the weight of authority, clarity, and resolution. Sophia shifted, her composure faltering, a subtle tremor in the smile that had carried so easily before, and Ryan's posture straightened, a hint of recognition crossing his features, the unspoken acknowledgement that the balance had irrevocably changed. The gallery lights reflected in the glossy pages, shimmering softly as if highlighting the truth, and I remained there, a calm figure in the center of the storm, the quiet epicenter of a revelation that needed no dramatics, no confrontation, just the clarity of evidence and the precision of timing, a demonstration that control, patience, and composure often speak louder than any raised voice or impulsive action could ever achieve. The atmosphere in the gallery shifted subtly as more guests turned their attention toward the documents, murmurs spreading like ripples across still water, each wordless question hanging in the air while I maintained my calm, poised stance, a quiet anchor amidst the curiosity and rising tension. The reflective surfaces of the polished floor mirrored the soft glow of the overhead lighting, casting elongated shapes of figures leaning in to see the evidence, and I allowed the moment to stretch, the suspense growing naturally, unforced, as the room absorbed the weight of what lay before them. Sophia's expression remained carefully measured, yet there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a subtle acknowledgement of the reality she had ignored, and Ryan's confident demeanor faltered slightly, the slight downturn of his shoulders betraying the internal recalibration of his expectations. I adjusted my posture slightly, a controlled gesture, and let the quiet command the scene, allowing others to take in the information at their own pace, the absence of confrontation amplifying the impact of what was being revealed. Conversation slowed, glasses clinked softly in tentative pauses, and the ambient music seemed to fade, replaced by the collective awareness that the narrative of the evening had shifted irrevocably, that the perceptions crafted over weeks and months were now challenged with precision and clarity. I traced my gaze across the room, noting the subtle shifts in body language, the way colleagues exchanged glances, some nodding slightly, others tilting their heads in acknowledgement, all reacting to the undeniable truth that had been laid bare. Sophia's hand twitched briefly near the edge of her clutch, a small motion betraying the tension beneath her composed exterior, and Ryan adjusted his tie as if to steady himself, a conscious effort to regain equilibrium in the midst of an unexpected disruption. I kept my expression neutral, letting the pages speak without commentary, the evidence itself drawing attention, guiding understanding, and establishing authority without raising my voice, without demanding validation, allowing the silent weight of preparation, patience, and insight to do the work. Guests leaned forward, studying the documents, whispering softly to one another, the subtle cadence of their reactions forming a rhythm that highlighted the contrast between prior assumptions and the reality unfolding before them. I took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the controlled tension in my chest ease slightly, knowing that each element had been positioned with intention, each step in the evening orchestrated to maintain calm while achieving clarity. The subtle light from the chandeliers glinted off a page as I turned it slightly, drawing eyes naturally, and the room seemed to hold its breath, the anticipation suspended, a collective pause that magnified the significance of every line, every signature, every detail presented with care. Sophia looked at Ryan, then back at me, the silent acknowledgement clear between them that control had shifted, and I allowed that moment to linger, the quiet power balanced perfectly, the impact complete without a single dramatic gesture, the evening now defined by the presence of truth, patience, and the measured assertion of authority that had guided every step of this unfolding revelation. The room had settled into a charged quiet, the subtle energy shifting as guests began to understand the significance of what was laid before them, their whispers a soft undercurrent beneath the soft strains of the string quartet in the corner. I remained composed, hands resting lightly on the folder, eyes scanning the subtle reactions across the crowd, aware of every flutter of a gaze, every small adjustment in posture, every hesitation in speech as they processed the details and implications of the documents I had revealed. Sophia's expression had transformed from confidence to uncertainty, a subtle tension threading through the careful lines of her face, and Ryan's posture reflected a quiet recalibration, the brief flicker of surprise tempered by the attempt to regain composure in a situation he had not anticipated. I allowed a measured pause, the silence deliberate, giving space for comprehension to take root. The quiet authority I maintained communicating more than any words could, every movement calibrated, every breath steady, conveying control without dominance, patience without aggression. Around the table, guests leaned in, curiosity mingling with the dawning realization that the narrative had shifted, their eyes moving from page to page, following the proof laid bare, understanding that the situation was no longer a performance but a demonstration of facts and precision, each line of ink a statement of accountability and resolution. The subtle reflections of the chandelier caught the edges of the papers, highlighting signatures, notations, and details that carried the weight of preparation, strategy, and careful observation, each element designed to convey clarity and authority without a single raised voice or overt gesture. I allowed myself a brief glance towards Sophia, noting the subtle changes in her demeanor, the quiet acknowledgement that the balance had shifted, and then back to the room, observing the ripple effect of comprehension as colleagues processed the evidence before them. The soft hum of conversation persisted but carried a different cadence now, a rhythm shaped by realization and the silent assertion of truth, and I let it unfold naturally, keeping my presence measured, calm, and deliberate. The documents remained central, their significance apparent in the careful attention they drew, and I maintained a composed stance, allowing the power of preparation, evidence, and timing to dominate the scene, the contrast between prior assumptions and reality resonating in every glance and subtle motion. Sophia's hand brushed lightly across her clutch, a fleeting gesture betraying the undercurrent of emotion, and Ryan shifted minutely, subtle adjustments in posture signaling the recognition that their prior sense of control had been quietly, decisively altered. I exhaled slowly, the rhythm of my breathing steady, the controlled energy in my chest tempered by the awareness that every detail had been positioned to achieve maximum clarity and impact. The room absorbed the weight of the revelation, and I remained the calm focal point, letting the evidence, timing, and silent authority speak for themselves, creating a moment defined not by confrontation or spectacle, but by measured, undeniable truth, and the understanding that control, preparation, and composure had quietly yet irrevocably shifted the evening in my favor. The air in the gallery grew heavier with quiet realization as more guests processed the subtle authority now evident, their eyes tracing the documents, their expressions softening with comprehension, some nodding ever so slightly, while others exchanged glances that spoke volumes without words. I remained still, a calm presence, observing the way attention shifted organically, noting the interplay of surprise, acknowledgement, and cautious curiosity in each face, the power of silent preparation manifesting fully in their reactions. Sophia's composure faltered, her poised smile, now edged with uncertainty, the confident demeanor she had carried so effortlessly earlier replaced by the delicate awareness that the evening was no longer under her control. Ryan shifted subtly, his posture momentarily stiffened, and the ease that had defined him just minutes before was replaced by a cautious calculation, an awareness that the balance had quietly shifted in ways they had not anticipated. I exhaled slowly, letting the steady rhythm of my heartbeat anchor me as I allowed the room to absorb the impact fully, the controlled energy in my chest reflected in the measured patience of my movements, each one deliberate, silent, conveying authority without a single word spoken. Guests leaned in to examine the documents more closely, the subtle sheen of the ink reflecting the chandelier lights, capturing attention naturally, each signature and notation carrying weight and clarity that required no explanation. Conversations became whispers, punctuated by soft pauses as people digested the unfolding situation, and I observed the nuances of human behavior, the micro-expressions, the slight shifts in stance, the tiny gestures betraying internal acknowledgement of the change in dynamic. Sophia's hand lingered near her clutch, a faint tension visible in her fingers, and Ryan adjusted his tie. A minimal but telling gesture of self-recalibration, each action emphasizing the quiet power of evidence presented with precision and timing. I allowed the moment to expand, the gallery filled with an almost tangible awareness that this was a turning point, a culmination of careful observation, preparation, and the quiet assertion of truth. The music continued, soft and ambient, yet it now served as a gentle underscore to the evolving understanding in the room, highlighting the contrast between prior assumptions and the reality now apparent to everyone present. I shifted my weight slightly, maintaining composure, letting the subtle gravity of the evidence draw attention without commentary, a demonstration of control and measured authority that spoke louder than any speech could. The reactions around me were unforced, authentic, arising from the undeniable clarity and structure of the documents, and I let that unfold naturally, allowing the evening to be defined by comprehension, recognition, and the quiet confirmation that preparation, patience, and composure can transform perception and command respect even in the midst of unexpected revelation. The subtle tension in the room reached a peak as the realization of the situation began to settle into a tangible awareness, each guest processing the implications with varying degrees of curiosity, surprise, and measured admiration for the composure I maintained. I let my gaze travel across the room, noting the shifts in posture, the way conversations had slowed into whispered exchanges, the way guests adjusted their positions subtly to observe without disrupting the flow, the social gravity of the moment becoming apparent without a single raised voice or overt gesture. Sophia's expression had softened into an uneasy awareness, the carefully constructed confidence she had carried like armor now tempered by recognition of the undeniable clarity of the documents laid before her, her movements more deliberate, measured, as if weighing each action and word in real time. Ryan remained poised but cautious, the previous certainty in his demeanor giving way to a restrained attentiveness, the slight tension in his shoulders and subtle shifts in eye contact signaling an understanding that the equilibrium had irrevocably changed. I allowed the room to breathe with the moment, a controlled silence that amplified the authority and impact of what had been revealed, my posture composed, movements precise, and energy steady, communicating control without dominance, patience without pressure, presence without demand. Guests leaned in, studied the pages, the subtle reflection of light catching the ink, drawing attention naturally, highlighting the precision of the details and the tangible weight of preparation and insight behind every signature, notation, and correspondence. I exhaled slowly, the rhythm of my heartbeat steady, allowing the gravity of patience and planning to carry the unfolding narrative, knowing that the subtle orchestration of timing, presence, and evidence would be understood and appreciated by those present without additional intervention. The soft hum of music and distant laughter from other areas of the gallery served as an ambient backdrop, contrasting with the focused intensity of this cluster, and I allowed the interplay of light, space, and human awareness to underscore the impact of the revelation, each glance, each small movement, each pause contributing to the narrative without a single word needing to be spoken. Sophia's fingers grazed the edge of her clutch, a minute tremor betraying the internal acknowledgement of the shift, and Ryan's subtle adjustment of his posture signaled the quiet recognition of altered circumstances, a recalibration of perception and expectation. I kept my stance composed, allowing the inherent authority of evidence, timing, and measured presence to convey the message with clarity, the room itself absorbing the weight of the truth, the silent power of preparation, and the quiet assertion of control that had guided every step leading to this precise moment. The gallery seemed to hold its collective breath, the moment stretched by anticipation and comprehension, and I remained the calm epicenter, the fulcrum around which the realization turned, a demonstration of how control, clarity, and measured patience could command attention, establish authority, and create undeniable understanding without a single dramatized action or confrontational exchange. The room seemed to breathe with anticipation as the reality of the evening settled over the crowd, the subtle shifts in posture, the soft murmurs, and the carefully measured glances creating a rhythm that spoke louder than words ever could. I remained still, the folder now slightly open on the table, pages catching the chandelier light in a way that naturally drew attention without any effort, the evidence inside speaking for itself, commanding focus and respect without a single elevated tone or overt gesture. Sophia's expression had softened into a quiet tension, the confidence she had worn so easily replaced by the awareness that the narrative had shifted irreversibly. Each small movement calculated as she processed the implications, her eyes darting briefly to Ryan before returning to the documents, a silent acknowledgement of the changed balance. Ryan, equally poised yet subtly alert, shifted his weight, a micro-expression crossing his features as he recalculated his perception, a recognition of the control and preparation I had exercised without spectacle, the quiet authority in my stance guiding the room toward comprehension. Guests leaned in naturally, studying the pages, reading lines, tracing signatures and notes, their body language reflecting the dawning understanding that the evening had evolved from casual social interaction to a demonstration of clarity, patience, and measured assertion. I allowed the moment to stretch, breathing slowly, the rhythm of my heartbeat steady, each inhale and exhale reinforcing the calm energy that contrasted with the internal awareness of the significance unfolding before all present. The ambient music and distant laughter created a soft backdrop, emphasizing the focus on the cluster of observers now engaged in quiet analysis, their attention captured by the evidence itself rather than any performative gesture, and I let this absorption take hold, maintaining composure as the subtle power of preparation and timing became apparent. Sophia's fingers traced the edge of the folder lightly, a fleeting but revealing gesture, while Ryan's subtle adjustment of his posture underscored the recalibration of expectation, their awareness of control quietly replaced by comprehension of the precise orchestration that had brought the evening to this point. The light caught on the polished surfaces of the table, the reflections drawing attention to details that had previously gone unnoticed, emphasizing the weight and clarity of each element laid before them. I exhaled, a slow, deliberate release, my calm energy anchoring the room as the implications solidified, each person present absorbing the shift in narrative with a mixture of recognition and respect. The gallery felt suspended in the quiet gravity of understanding, a space where timing, preparation, and controlled authority spoke volumes, the culmination of subtle orchestration and patience evident in every glance, pause, and nuanced movement, leaving no doubt that the balance had irrevocably shifted and the evening would be remembered for the clarity and composed assertion that defined it. The gallery had settled into a quiet attentiveness, the initial ripple of reactions now transformed into a steady focus on the evidence laid out before them, each guest processing the events with an understanding that spoke to subtle recognition and measured judgment. I remained composed, the weight of control anchored in my posture, every breath deliberate, every movement minimal yet purposeful, projecting calm authority as the room absorbed the shift in narrative. Sophia's face reflected the delicate tension of acknowledgement, the carefully maintained poise replaced by a restrained awareness of the consequences unfolding silently, a recognition that the previous balance had been quietly yet decisively altered. Ryan's stance mirrored similar realization, subtle adjustments in his posture betraying the awareness that the evening had evolved beyond expectations, the controlled presentation of evidence having transformed perception without a single word spoken aloud. Around the table, whispers interlaced with thoughtful glances, the ambient music and muted chatter forming a backdrop that emphasized the gravity of observation, each small movement by guests highlighting the impact of the methodical orchestration that had guided this moment. I allowed the energy in the room to settle naturally, the subtle hum of curiosity and understanding creating a rhythm that reinforced the influence of measured preparation and patience, demonstrating authority through clarity rather than confrontation. The reflections of chandelier light across polished surfaces accentuated the details of the documents, capturing attention in a way that highlighted the precision and transparency of the presentation, each page speaking volumes about intention, foresight, and careful consideration. Sophia's fingers brushed lightly over the edge of her clutch, a slight gesture betraying the internal processing of the undeniable facts, while Ryan's brief, controlled adjustment of his stance communicated a silent acknowledgement of the recalibration of control and understanding. Guests leaned subtly to read, their attention focused, eyes scanning every line and signature, absorbing the weight of truth conveyed without dramatization, the quiet impact resonating in expressions and silent dialogue among observers. I maintained my neutral expression, the stillness in my body anchoring the scene, demonstrating that authority, clarity, and composure could create profound influence without spectacle or elevated tone, the measured power evident in every reaction and adjustment within the gallery. Each element of timing, patience, and deliberate positioning contributed to the collective realization, the subtle orchestration underscoring the effectiveness of calm, controlled presence in guiding perception and establishing an undeniable narrative. The moment stretched, unhurried, allowing comprehension to solidify naturally, the room collectively acknowledging the transformation of the evening from routine social engagement to a demonstration of preparation, insight, and understated command, a lasting impression shaped by quiet power, measured patience, and the undeniable clarity of action. As I exhaled, slow and deliberate, the steady rhythm of my presence reinforced the shift, the gallery now a space defined by acknowledgement, understanding, and the recognition that strategic calm, precise execution, and silent authority had irrevocably altered the dynamic, leaving a sense of resolution and the quiet assertion of influence that would resonate long after the lights dimmed and the evening concluded.